Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I am the founder and now partner of a fabulous 20-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours over the last 20 years to Italy, Spain, and soon Napa. And in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. We are excited to now be in our second season, and our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture to all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. So sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Welcome, everyone, and thanks again for listening to our podcast, Inspiring Living. Welcome to Season 2, and happy holidays, everyone. Today, our podcast features an amazing lady who I've had the pleasure of collaborating with, not in architecture, but about architecture. Today, I welcome interior designer and famed writer Patricia Hart McMillan, who joins us by phone from her home in San Antonio, Texas. She's an uber-talented designer and writer, and I have been lucky to have 3 of my homes featured in her book, Christmas by Design. I have been posting some of the videos of these 3 homes on Instagram and Facebook lately, so please enjoy. The link to buy her book is available on our website, so I invite you to finish up your holiday shopping with a purchase of this delightful book. Her story and insights are spot on, so enjoy. Okay, here we go. Our guest today is Patricia Hart McMillan, a wonderful writer and interior decorator I met a few years ago while working together on one of her 22 published books, Christmas by Design, of which 3 of our homes are featured. Her books focus on interior design, architecture, and 7 of them center on Christmas. Well, welcome, Patricia. I'm so glad you could join us virtually here. I know you're down in San Antonio. How are things down there today?
The weather has been perfect, very, very beautiful. I don't miss the snow at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
No, I love the beautiful weather here.
Well, for our listeners that are not familiar with you, tell us where you are. We just said San Antonio. And tell us, let us first talk about how we met. How did we meet? I'm trying to remember. I think it was through social media, right?
It was Facebook.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's how I met my lovely wife, Isabel, too. So Facebook's been very, very good to me.
Yes, Facebook is not all bad. If you if you're on the TV, there's some controversy, but it has been a wonderful gift to many people, bringing families together, friends together. Making new friends.
Yep.
It's been great. It's
been absolutely wonderful. So we've known each other for quite a while, and I've admired your work from afar, and you've admired my work from afar, and eventually it kind of all brought us together, and I've just enjoyed meeting you, and we physically have met. You flew here to help me with a project we'll talk about here in a little bit, but you're just an amazing lady. I mean, you really get after it. So it's a real honor to first know you, to work with you and collaborate a little bit with you, and have you on our podcast today. So thank you.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Mark. You know that I'm your number 1 fan.
Well, I appreciate that a great deal, and right back at you, too. Okay, so now let's get into your story. Tell us where you grew up and when, and how did you get an interest in design and writing, and which came first?
Well, it's funny that I grew up on my grandmother's farm. I was born in 1932, the height of the Great Depression, but amazingly, I never knew there was a depression. Everybody on the farm was happy. Everyone sang all day long while they did their chores, and it really was idyllic. And then I became very acquainted with design, actually architecture, when I climbed into my grandmother's attic to watch the carpenters who were finishing the attic, and I fell in love with the aroma of sawdust.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. It's funny you mentioned that, because that brings back a memory for me, too. I remember my grandfather's garage, and he had saws and tools, and I was always really fascinated, and I remember that smell.
Oh, it was glorious. I just thought I'd, climbed into heaven or something. It was just wonderful. And then, of course, as I was growing up, one of my aunts passed along all the Better Homes and Gardens, and there was like 4, maybe 6 pages of interior decorating ideas and so forth. And I devoured those magazines, and that was all preschool.
Wow.
It was just funny. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather's name was on the cornerstone of the local school, where I spent most of the time in the library. That was my haven. I loved the library.
Yep.
So get to read about architecture and interior design and everything else.
Yeah, interesting. That brings back another memory. Boy, you're really tapping into my soul here today. I think we've always had that little connection, and I'm really understanding why now, because I used to love going to the library too for the same reasons. I used to love finding books about architecture and design and things like that. So I'd forgotten about that, and you just brought back some great memories for me.
Well, I think all study eventually is individual and personal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how many classes you sit in, you have to get personally involved. And being in the library and being on one's own, being able to pick out the books and really relish what you're reading and seeing is a glorious thing.
It sure is. And I remember, doing the same in bookstores. I'd go in a bookstore and I would just get lost for hours, sometimes just drifting from here to there. And I think I kind of worried that that's getting lost in some degree. Don't you? I mean, between the library, I don't remember when my kids have been to the library, if ever. And,
Well, people always knew they could find me in the stacks.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, just the smell of the books and everything. It's just such a great experience. So from these trips to the library and the Better Home and Gardens magazine, you kind of just really tapped into your soul on design, right? As a young child.
Yes.
And it just carried through.
And the editors of the magazine, the designers, have no idea the extent of their influence. Isn't that amazing?
Oh yeah, it does. A lot of it just goes into you subconsciously sometimes, I think. Mm-hmm. So then, when you carried that passion, did it get into, as you moved through school? Did you get more interested in architecture and design and writing, and how did that all take place?
I was very interested in that, but I was more interested in music.
Oh, interesting.
I always envisioned myself as a career. I was going to sing at La Scala.
Okay.
So right out of high school, I went to study voice. And when my teacher told me that my voice was not powerful enough for grand opera,
mm-hmm.
I went into a terrible blue funk and stormed out. And she said, "You'll regret this." And because I had never heard anyone like Sarah Brightman, she said, "You can do concerts." And I said, "Oh, no. And so off I went, Then I said, okay, if I can't do voice, I can't sing and so on, then I will devote myself to interior design.
Interesting.
Which was, that I could do.
Right.
I didn't have to be in front of anybody. I didn't have to have a certain volume.
Right.
I could do that.
Well, that's interesting. So interior design, was it, did you go to formal college and school for interior design, or how did that all take place?
I went for a bachelor's degree at the State University of New York, in New Paltz, New York, and I studied, my English literature was my major, but I had a minor degree in art history. So then I went to school at the New York School of Interior Design for a certificate in interior decorating. But I really learned more, I think, about architecture and interior design from my art history courses.
Interesting. So go ahead.
I have a real bent toward classicism, which is what attracts me to your work.
Yeah, and that's funny because that's always been my passion too. I have always told people I was born a couple centuries maybe too late, but I find it kind of ebbs and flows, and there's always the demand and passion from people for the classics, and it never seems to ever die. I mean, again, it seems like it's really kind of coming back again now that we've kind of got into this COVID mode. I see a lot of requests from our houses for people for more warmth, more detail, and a little less of the contemporary and a little more of the classics. So it's something that I think is just a beautiful thing.
Well, it's so timeless in its appeal, and so basic. the sense of symmetry and all of the elements that go into classicism. So, but I know I'm sort of jumping ahead to talk about your work, but I'm just impelled to say, it's that element about your work that appeals so strongly to me. And not that you're a dogged copier of classicism, but your combining of the elements, your fresh approach is just very distinctive.
Well,
very
thank you.
different.
Thank you. Well, I know you see a lot of work from lot of different designers and architects, so I take that as a real compliment, so I appreciate that.
Yes, you deserve it.
Well, thank you. So describe your career. It's kind of dual track. It's design and editorial. So you obviously went into the design field first, if I'm correct, right?
Well, not really. Actually, my first job combined both.
Okay.
After I finished my degree, I got a job with a magazine called 1001 Decorating Ideas in New York City. And we designers, there were actually three of us, designed sets which were constructed on site where we were. We were actually 2 floors above our offices. We had carpenters and painters and upholsterers and slipcover makers and whatever we wanted, we had. And we would create the sets, to illustrate whatever point, advice, suggestion we had. They would get constructed, get photographed, get knocked down, and we would do the same thing the next day.
Wow.
But I was the one designer who also wrote the article.
Interesting.
Mark, that stood me in very good stead because there was a time when there was a depression, depressed economy, and the magazine was sold. Much of the staff was dismissed. I was one of 2 editors who was retained because I could both write and design.
Wow.
And that's when I said, in New York City, it's not enough just to sing or dance. You have to do both.
That's right,
and
right?
I was very fortunate.
Yeah, I love to do everything. I love to play the piano. I love to write. And I think it really is really helpful to have the ability to do different things for the very reason you said. You just never know, especially with the ebb and flow of the economy and the times. It's just great to develop all your different skills and passions. And you obviously did that, and it proved to be very successful for you. I mean, what were the years that you were in New York?
I'm sorry?
What years were you in New York? What was the time frame?
I went to, my first job was started in 1973.
Okay.
I graduated in the spring from the State University of New York at New Paltz and went right to New York City.
Wow.
And went to work for the magazine.
You went right to the top.
Well, that's the only way, right?
That's the only way. And you always do it right, let me tell you.
I have to laugh because I've often said that, this is America. You just start at the top.
That's right. I love it. It's so good.
That's my own joke.
No, that's a good one. I think that's very true sometimes. I think a lot of people don't get that. There's actually some underlying wisdom there in that I think a lot of people wait for, their opportunity, and then there's people that just go for it and make it their opportunity. The opportunity just comes just by attrition. You just make it happen. And I think a lot of artists are really good at that, to be honest with you. I think a lot of them just get out there and just start doing their craft and what they love, and it just happens. So
it's so spontaneous.
Yeah.
It's hard not to. When I read the book Lean In, I sort of laughed because I think that basically we're all creative, and some of us have it squelched at an early age, but others don't.
Right.
And so it's a natural thing to reach out and to do something.
Right, right. So you're best known for your book, Home Decorating for Dummies. This seems to really encapsulate your dual passions. Tell us about the book, when you wrote it, and why you think it became so successful.
Well, that was very funny because I love bookstores. And I was in the local bookstore in Delray Beach, and I noticed all of these For Dummies books.
Yeah.
And I said, for goodness sakes, there needs to be a For Dummies decorating book. So I went home, picked up the telephone, and called the acquisitions editor at the publishing company. And I said, you need a decorating book. She said, how soon can you have a proposal?
Interesting.
I said, you will have it tomorrow afternoon. She was in Chicago. I was in Florida. So I went out to my typewriter and lickety-split cranked out the proposal and a table of contents and so on and sent it overnight to her. She called me the next afternoon and she said, okay, I love it. She said, now, can you dummyize it? And I said, oh, I'll give that a go. So I did that. And then, very quickly we had a book.
Wow.
And I think you asked me why it became successful. And it still is. It's over 20 years ago that I wrote that book. It's because it's both practical and theoretical. In other words, it has the theory, but it also has my practical experience because all along the line, I had private clients, private decorating clients, like in the evenings at night or on Saturdays or sometimes even Sunday afternoons.
Right.
I would go and call on a client. And that came about because I taught a class, adult education class, and at the end of it, one of the students came to me and she said, I want to redo my house. She said, could you come and help me? And I said, well, how successful a teacher am I? If you want me to come and do it, you should be able to do it yourself. And we laughed, and she said, well, I would like you to come. So I did, and after that, I did 13 of her friends' homes in the same neighborhood. That was just amazing.
Wow.
And some of them were published. So then I began sort of publishing the homes I was doing, and everybody benefited.
Yeah, no, see that
nothing was wasted.
I think that's awesome, and I think that's the other thing I find that with a lot of designers and architects, I think it's very important to document your work, get it out there, and that's where Facebook and Instagram have been great for a lot of talented people because it has kind of forced them to do that. I think before that, a lot of architects and designers just wouldn't take the time to go get their work photographed and get it out there. And I think you saw the value of that very early in your career, and it really helped propel you to the big time for sure.
Well, it is important, and the New York editors had the idea that they sort of decide who would be the A-list and who would not. But when I began to work on Christmas by Design, I was determined not to go to the same tried and true designers, but to seek out design talent that had not really been recognized nationally, but maybe had strong regional followings.
Right.
And I knew they would be highly competent and very dependable because we have deadlines when you're doing a book, as you know now.
Yeah.
And so it was my pleasure to reach out and to find designers who really wanted their work published.
Right. No, and I think that's what's neat about your books is they are always evolving. It's not always the same, and so I was very fortunate that you found my work and we were able to put a nice package together for you. And I think that's the other thing too. I think it's important as a designer to make it easy for a writer or a publication to put your work out there. I mean, if you just make it so difficult for them, well, everyone's going to always seek out the easiest route. And if you have great work and can make it easy for them, well, that's the winning ticket, I think, right there, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
So I hear that two of your books inspired your signature furnishings collection, launched at High Point's International Furnishing Show. And I'll tell you what, Isabel and I love attending the High Point Market. We really missed it this year in 2020, and we're hoping we can get out there in April. Do you go every year? And tell us about your furnishings collection.
Well, I went every year for many years as an editor to both the spring and the fall markets, and always loved them. That's where you see everyone in the industry. You see all the editors, you see all the manufacturers, you see all the designers. You just see the whole world of interior design and furnishings right there. So I loved it. When I wrote books, I wrote 2 books on country style, which was, at the time, a new look. Actually, I wrote the first book on country style decorating, and then 30 days later, Mary Emmerling wrote her country style book.
Yeah, remember that.
Swept mine right away, off the scene. Hers was so fantastic. And I did waited a few years, and I thought, oh, I really do see something happening with country style. We've gone away from the mason jars, to something else, something much more sophisticated. So I called it Sun Country style, which meant that the emphasis was on the outdoor, indoor look, and country, but not quilts, not, it was still a relaxed, informal, we would call it a country style. So I did 2 Sun Country books, and two manufacturers said, oh, I'd love to do something with this. One was Garcia Imports from California, and the other one was Hooker Furniture. And Garcia did something that was more living room, dining room, bedroom. Hooker did home office furniture collection. The Garcia Imports was very creative. We put palm trees, a palm tree motif on the door of an armoire that sold forever. And then pretty soon, the following market, Mark, everybody had something with palm trees.
Isn't that funny?
It was astounding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, the Hooker furniture, the home office, was very austere and not popular. It was popular with editors because it was different, and it got tons of publicity, but it didn't sell.
Huh.
So I said, I think I'm going to learn a lesson here.
There's always lessons to be learned, aren't there?
Oh, unfortunately, some of them are painful.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was not glorious. It really got a lot of publicity, but, that doesn't always mean sales.
Right,
so
right.
You have to know what the public wants. I think you can't really say to them, hey, you've got to be austere this year.
Yeah. It's hard to pick up on where those trends are going, and it seems like, in the past, before social media and the technology that's available to us that's ever changing, you'd see a couple beautiful homes or themes in a magazine, and there'd be 12 magazines in the year, and there was time to absorb it, and it seems like now with Pinterest and some of these things, I mean, the style can change in a matter of minutes. It seems.
Exactly.
Do you notice that?
Yes, except that as an editor, when I went for years and years, I noticed that actually what I would call the classics, the traditional furniture style, was always there. The top seller. Yeah. No matter who brought in something new, fresh, different.
Huh. Interesting. And I think that still is the case.
Sales were always in what I'd call traditional furniture.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe tweaked a little.
Yep. Different derivatives off of it.
But the basics were there.
Yeah. So when and why did you begin creating Christmas-themed books? I mean, you have a real passion for the Christmas and the holidays, don't you? So I'm really fortunate I get to do this podcast with you just a week before Christmas. This is fabulous.
Well, the interesting thing to me was that when I was a magazine editor, our Christmas issue was the big thing. It was always the climax of the year to have this wonderful, and it was not just the magazine I worked for, but all of them.
Yeah. Yep.
But by the time I did my first Christmas book, magazines had stopped that whole trend. Christmas was not important anymore. And then the Christmas pages that did show up were something, very trying really desperately hard to be, quotes, different.
Right.
The all-white Christmas room, devoid of anything traditional or even recognizable. So I picked up the phone one year, and I said to the editor of House Beautiful, what's happened? Where's Christmas? He said, we just don't do much with Christmas anymore. And I said, that's pathetic. I'm going to do a book.
There you go.
So I called Schiffer Publishing, who had done 2 books. Let's see, 2 books, or maybe more. 2 ceramic tile, glass, architectural glass tile for me. And I said, why don't we do a Christmas book? And the owner of Schiffer at the time was Nancy Schiffer, who had sold antiques all her life, so she had a wonderful sense of history. And she said, okay, do it. So I sent her material, and the phone rang one day, and she said, Pat, this is Nancy. I have your material. And I thought, this is not sounding good. She said, well, the problem is you've got enough for 2 books. So we want to do 2 books. I said, oh, okay. She said, now here's the thing. We want you to decide which goes in which book. So you must decide. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I did that. And one was published one year, and one was published the following year. So that's how I got started, because I really thought, Mark, that Christmas is too important to ignore.
Right.
We simply cannot do that.
Right. And I think this year... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And, you know, I looked at the books rack, the magazine rack in the bookstore just a few days ago. When I did that first book, you know, there was almost nothing in the magazines. That was in, let me think, that was in what was it book? 19, I'm trying to decide what year that was. Like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Wait a sec. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is that now there are dozens of Christmas specials devoted entirely and totally to Christmas.
Right.
So I would like to take all the credit, Mark.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think this year in particular is probably going to be a good year, because I think everyone's got the time to sit at home and kind of count their blessings, and, you know, hopefully...
So that was 2010, that first Christmas book, 2010.
Yep. Wow, 2010.
And since then, every year, I think we see more and more of Christmas.
Yeah.
And this year, more than ever, Mark, before Thanksgiving, all the retail stores here in San Antonio were chock-a-block full of Christmas. I was astounded.
I think it's because of what I was just saying. I think everyone's home, everyone's decorating, everyone's like, if we're going to stay home, we're going to really make it nice, we're going to make it really beautiful, and we're just going to hunker down and get through this. So I think everyone's really, really trying to make the most out of the what's left of 2010 and enjoy Christmas. So you have a big hand in capturing that for all of us. That's for sure. So we first connected while you were working on Christmas by Design, which is an incredibly beautiful book featuring 250 pages displaying designers' homes, totally decked out for the holidays. I pitched you a few of our clients' homes, and you actually used 3 of mine for your book.
I know, and I was so carried away by your work that instantly I thought of another book.
Well, that's good.
On architecture, and I'm stuck on the title. You know, I wanted to call it High Desert, High Style, because it's just so amazing. I haven't really begun work on that one yet. I'm kind of waiting now because of the pandemic, because I'm not sure how excited my publisher is going to be to do a book on style. But that book needs to be done, so I'm concentrating on that.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're always concentrating on something. I don't see you ever slowing down, so that's fabulous.
Well, I don't know. That's too funny. I just don't really think about age or any other thing. As long as I can get up and keep running.
Yep.
You know, when I was in my 70s, one of my daughters and I were doing some work in her apartment, and I had climbed up on a stool to take down the curtains, and she said, "Oh, just hop down." And I looked at her and I said, "I think my hopping days are over."
Oh gosh, I know mine are.
She started laughing.
Yeah, it's you definitely appreciate just everything that has to do with safety these days. Just the fact I can see sometimes, I'm pretty happy about that. So it was so fun working with you on that book, Patricia. And have you come out to meet me and our clients? I mean, have you actually seen? You haven't actually seen all the houses, have you? All 3 of them? Did you ever visit any 3, or is it just the photographs that I gave you?
I just had the photographs because we were so rushed. I think you had a deadline and I had a deadline.
Yeah, that's right.
And we squeezed our meeting in, you know. And I wish I could have stayed a long time and seen all the houses in person, because I visit them often on page.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful. You know, I look especially at the ceiling treatments in these buildings that you have done. They're highly imaginative and absolutely glorious. And then your work with arches and vaults. I mean, I'm entranced.
Well, it's always all those
So,
trips to Europe that just I think are in my subconscious, and I just love replicating. I always tell people that the ceiling is the heaven of the architecture, and so I love the ceiling. I love doing things with the ceilings.
well, I know, but you sent me back to my architectural books to study. Okay, what kind of arch is this? What kind of vault is this? And is there a name? I have a son-in-law who's an architect, so I called him the other day, and I said, what do I call these little things that interrupt the roof line? I can't find them anywhere in my architectural and ornament, a visual guide. And he said, oh, we call those segmented, what is it called? Segmented
arches
dormers.
or dormers?
Said,
oh,
it's
okay.
not a dormer. He
Yep.
said, we call them segmented dormers. And so I love them.
Yeah. So we featured 3 houses. The Hunter's house, which is not far from my house here. I think that what captured me on that book and that page or that part of your feature was the bulldog image. You remember that?
Oh, oh yes. I love that dog.
And that's inspired a new book for you, right?
I'm sorry?
That's inspired a new book for you, At Home with Dogs.
But it did. Can you imagine? I had worked with with a photographer here in San Antonio, and she worked with me on this Patricia Design. She photographed 8 homes here in San Antonio, and we met after the book was published to critique it.
Mm-hmm.
And we came across this picture of the bulldog, and I'm looking at him right now, and I just adore that face. And she said, Pat, let's do a book about dogs. And I said, Natalia, what do I know about dogs?
Oh, that's funny. Well, everyone loves dogs.
I know a great deal.
Yep.
As it turns out, she does a lot of dog portraits.
Huh.
So then I began to get serious. I said, oh, you really mean to do this? And she said, yes. And so we did. And we will start promoting that book in January.
So that book out already?
It's called At Home with Dogs, Rescue Love Stories.
Oh, that's nice. And the book's available?
Amazon.com.
There you go. Well, we'll have that in our story notes so people can click on that. It's not too late to purchase for the holidays, so definitely get your Amazon card out and get that book because it is a lot of fun. I've seen little glimpses of it, and it's gorgeous.
Well, the fun thing about that book is that I really did not write that book. What I did was have all the homeowners tell me their stories in writing, a questionnaire, Q&A, and then I put them into a narrative form, sent them back to them for their approval because it was using all of their own language, their own thoughts, their own everything. I just arranged them.
That's amazing.
And so that gave them all their credit.
Well, that's good.
I'm the editor, not the writer this time.
There you go.
That was fun.
That's good. Well, in the Christmas by Design book, we had 3 beautiful houses I mentioned, the Hunter residence, the Hanley residence, which is an absolutely gorgeous home that I'm very proud to be a part of, and then the Golick residence up in Troon. All 3 are just off the charts, decorated to the hilt. And
they're absolutely impeccably decorated. The taste is excellent. I mean, there's absolutely no fault to find, no flaw in any of them. Totally remarkable.
Well, they'll love to hear that. So we want our listeners to know this book, Christmas by Design, is available to purchase on Amazon.com for, I think it says $45. And you can actually purchase it. We put the link on our website. So you can just go right to our website and get the book right there. So order that right away. You still got time before the holidays. And we've also got our Candelaria Collection pasta machine on there, too. So a couple great gifts. I mean, combine the pasta maker with Patricia's book, and you got a home run, I guarantee you, for a fabulous holiday gift. So what other Christmas? The other Christmas books I see here on my list is Christmas at Historic Houses, Christmas at America's Landmark Houses, and Christmas at Designers' Homes. Is that correct?
Yes, and I did a gift-size book, which has been very popular, called Decorations, or Delicious Christmas Decorations at Historic Houses.
That sounds good.
And all of those images were taken from historic house museums, and all of the decorations are made from fruits.
Holy wow.
And wonderful ideas. The pineapple, of course, was a historic
Mm-hmm.
the sign of welcome. It was always used for centerpieces and that sort of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And the landmark houses, the stories of the houses are fascinating because they're about the builders. And as I said, the people who built these houses built not just a house, but they built families, they built communities, they built states, and they built a nation.
That's exactly right. And that's what I always love about doing a house. I mean, if you just think about what goes into one house, it's a lot of drawings, a lot of time there. But when you look at all the people that are involved in putting a house together, I mean, from the people that are mining materials out of the earth, cutting trees to build the lumber, to it's a lot of people are affected and touched and involved in building one house, and that's one thing I'm just very, very proud of being involved in.
Yes, one of the houses in San Antonio that we photographed had been remodeled. It was an old house that had been remodeled, and as they remodeled it, all the craftsmen put their names.
Oh, that's cool.
On the floor joists.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of names.
That's so funny. I love that idea.
Yeah.
But you know what, Mark? There's one thing I need to say about Christmas by Design, and that is that people need to know that you wrote the foreword.
Oh, well, that's very nice. It was fun. It was so fun. I love collaborating with you because you push me. I always love the fact that you push me.
But you wrote a wonderful foreword. I'm tempted to read the first line. You say, "I have been blessed to have designed more than 1,000 homes." Well, I think that was in 2018. So now that's probably up to.
Well, I think just in the last month, it's been another. It's been in the last year. It's been another 1,000. I think it's been so crazy this year. Holy cow!
I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh my gosh! So, are you working on any books now, Patricia? Are you writing any new publications?
Of course I am. I'm collecting material to do high desert, high style.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't told the publisher yet, but I'm sure they're going to love it. And then I'm working with my photographer here, Natalia, and we're going to do something about the Texas Hill Country.
Oh, that's fun.
That's that favorite area that President LBJ loved that.
Yep.
That's where his ranch is there. And I've learned to appreciate it very much. It's quite different than I was accustomed to. These sort of rolling hills and the bluebonnets, which cover the ground in the spring, are really glorious. And there's some wonderful old houses here, so we want to do something.
Yeah, well, that's a really popular style for homes. I know we've emulated some of the homes. We've actually gone down to Austin a couple times, and we've picked limestone from that area, and then got inspired by the houses that we saw in some of the hill country. So there's just some great architecture down there.
Well, we have one house in our current Christmas book, which we're promoting, which is See San Antonio at Christmas, Our Favorite Places, People, and Things. And there's a historic house we included that is made of stone that was quarried from a quarry which is now in the middle of the city.
Oh, interesting.
And the quarry has become a golf course. That's so funny.
Oh, that's cool. I've actually seen where they've done that in some places, like old gravel pits. They've turned it into golf courses, and so that's a great use of that. And I think I've told you this. I have never been to San Antonio, and that's definitely on my list of places. Yeah,
you have to come. It is a unique city.
I've heard it's beautiful.
It's unlike any we've ever lived in. We've lived hither and yon. My husband was in the Air Force for a long while, and we traveled from base to base. And every city is different. Yeah.
Now, how did you end up in San Antonio?
Well, we had lived in Florida. We left New York City after 22 years working. Actually, I was sent to Florida. I had a job with a very large company, and you talked about a dual-track career.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dual-track career with that company. I was the director of corporate communications and the director of office planning and interior design.
Wow.
They were headquartered in New York City. They sent me to Florida to redesign the interiors of a 244,000 square foot operations headquarters.
Gosh.
So I was commuting back and forth, and finally I said, you know what, I really like Florida. And my husband was getting ready to retire from AT&T, so we decided to buy a house there, or actually a condo, and we stayed there for a number of years. And finally he said, I think I need to go home, and reestablish my Texas roots. So we decided on San Antonio because he had 22 West Point classmates who had retired here. We knew we would have an instant community, and so we came, and we've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know when I speak to you, you talk very fondly of San Antonio and how beautiful it is. So I need to make some time to get down there and spend some time with you. So let's hopefully.
Mark, there's some really beautiful buildings here,
Mm-hmm.
And architecture has been a big thing for the city. I did a book called Old Places, New Spaces, which talks about the older homes, historic homes, really, which keep their historic exterior, but have been renovated and made contemporary inside.
Yeah.
And
that's fun to do. I see a lot of that in Europe. When I go to Europe, they keep the old outer shell, but boy, they can trick out that inside pretty cool. So that's a fun thing to do, and I love that because it really keeps those old buildings versus tearing the whole thing down. So, in terms of being a decorator and writer, and I know how busy you are, what do you do in your spare time to relax, and what's your way of kind of turning the switch off? Because I know you're full tilt all the time. So what do you do to?
You make me laugh.
What do you do to chill out?
Well, actually, I'm a mystery fan.
Okay.
I love reading mystery novels, and I want to tell everybody who's listening, if you have not read the Peter Tremaine books about Sister Fidelma and the Ellis Peters books about Cadfael, and you love history, you have to read those. They're just superb, and they've both been made into movies, but the books are great. They're history,
Yep.
And they're chock full of Latin phrases, and by history, actually, there are secular history and church history, both of them, and they're just altogether excellent reading.
That's neat. Yeah, so that's why I always like the Dan Brown books, the Da Vinci Code. There's all the history that's woven into this great mystery, and so you feel like you're learning something as you're kind of being entertained.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, the Sister Fidelma books by Peter Tremaine have to do with Irish history, and I think it's about the 7th century. So you get a look at things that are very different.
Right.
And yet the people are people.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
And Cadfael is mid-12th century England and Shrewsbury.
Huh.
And he's an Anglo and not a Saxon.
My wife would enjoy both of these books.
Anyway, it's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, we recently came to you asking for some guidance on a book that I'm putting together, spanning some of my most memorable projects over the last 20 years. And you have just been a wonderful mentor and have given me some great pointers. So what advice can you give to aspiring writers and to those wanting to publish a coffee table book or a book for any type of book for that matter? What's some of the advice that you'd have from all of the experiences that you've gone through in putting these books together?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that older people seem always to think, oh, it's too late.
Yeah.
But it's not too late.
Right.
Not every flower blooms in the spring.
There you go.
I, for example, what I would certainly call a late bloomer.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let age deter you.
There you go.
And don't let any experience, if you've never written anything, deter you. This is America. You're free to write, so write.
Yep. And
you think, okay, well, how to go about it. My advice to most people who have never written anything is just to write.
Right.
Don't think about it too much. Just write what's on your mind and what's in your heart. And then later on, you can think about organizing it. Almost every manual says, oh, do your outline first.
Right.
I think that's really asking too much. Don't do your outline first.
Get the thoughts out there. Get the thoughts out there and then organize it.
Well, people want to do their biographies, and the thing of it is, you don't have to think chronologically. You think about incidents that come to your mind, and you write about that incident.
Right.
You can organize them later.
Yeah, exactly. That's great advice. You've given me great advice, and I've been so fortunate now to have Schiffer, who you mentioned, the publisher. They're going to let me do a couple books for them, thanks to you and the advice and tips you've helped me put this whole thing together. And I've got a deadline of July 1st, if I'm right. I'm going to make it July 1st instead of the 31st to get my first book done. So I've got to get after it, and I'm going to be sending you some examples. But they've been so kind. They're going to let me put the basics together, and they're going to put the whole thing together. And I think my release is in December of 22. So it takes a while to put these books together, doesn't it?
Well, that's truly wonderful. What I like to do, my mother said once, "Oh, you should be a teacher." I said, "No, I don't like to teach. What I do like to do, Mark, is share."
Yeah.
If I know something, everybody else is welcome to it. Because I always feel that for creative people, it just keeps coming. Inspiration keeps coming to us, so we don't need to hoard it.
Right.
We need to share it.
That's very, very good advice. That's so true. I love that. And I think another thing that I want to ask you is just based on what you just said, and I experience this a lot of times as a creative person, you are always sharing. You're always letting the creative juices flow from your tank. What do you do to put that fuel back into your system, Patricia? What's your way of doing that? I know you read. I know you look at I believe you like to travel. What are some of the ways that you, as a creative person, refill the tank?
Just to look. Open your eyes, open your ears. I think that inspiration, first of all, I basically think that all knowledge, all wisdom, all inspiration comes from God.
Yeah.
But he pours it out. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible not to be inspired. And so the more you see, the more you do. This may sound silly to you, but let me say this. Every Wednesday, I take a stack of newspapers that we've read to the local Salvation Army. That's an organization that does a great deal of good.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm there, I browse around because I enjoy seeing things. It's like a treasure hunt.
Right.
But it's just so much fun. You see lots of things that people cherished, that meant a great deal to them, but now here it is in the Salvation Army. But it's there for other people to enjoy, too.
Yeah.
And there are always interesting things to look at from a design point of view.
Right. Well, I think the point that I take away from what you just said, and it's something I talk about all the time, and I firmly believe. I think we have two eyes in our head, and we see what we see out there, but I think it's up to us what we perceive of what we see. I think we have a choice. I think we can look at something and take it negatively, or we can look at something and take it positively. It's a matter of how we twist that perception. And your whole experience in life all of a sudden just changes by that switch of perception. And so what you said really sparked that for me. I really think it's important for people to just look for the positive and not always for the negative. I always think it's funny when we present a drawing to people for the first time, what their reaction is. I think most people have a tendency to look for what's wrong with something versus what's right with something. And I think we just all need to retrain ourselves a little bit and go, why don't we think about what's right with something first, and then figure out the things that need to be fine-tuned a little bit to make it just absolutely perfect versus the other way around.
Well, I have a great appreciation for the creativity and everybody. I was chatting with a psychologist once at a conference, and she said to me, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a designer and an author." She said, "Oh, that's so creative." I said, "Everyone is creative." And she stared at me, and I said, "There's almost no job that cannot be approached creatively."
That's right.
You can think about better ways to do it.
Yep.
Quicker, shorter, smarter, more elegant, whatever.
Right.
So that needs to be encouraged in everybody.
Yeah, and in every task. I mean,
it's not the chosen few.
Right. Right. And that's what that's one of our taglines in our company is.
But Mark, the first time I saw paper flowers, I stared at them somebody had taken paper and made flowers.
Right.
And they were beautiful. And then the next thing that intrigued me was used license plates. Somebody had folded them and made napkin holders. I thought, how clever.
Right.
You know?
Versus putting it in the dumpster. Right?
Of course. But, I love that kind of inventiveness in people.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. That's what I tell people. That's what I was just going to say is, every task it could be the most boring, mundane thing, but you can take each task and turn it into something very creative and something beautiful and an experience. Again, it's just a matter of just taking the time to take that switch and flip it and go, okay, yep, I got to take out the trash. But you know what? I'm going to sing a song as I do it. I'm going to think about things, and all of a sudden it's like, taking out the trash is kind of this great meditative experience. So it's just a matter of what you do with everything that you have to do in life.
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Have you ever been bored?
Oh, gosh. I remember when I was a kid a couple times saying I was bored, but I rarely, I would love to be bored. I would love the opportunity to say, God, I'm just totally bored. I don't think that's ever happened. What about you? I don't think it's happened for you either, from what I know about you.
I cannot remember one moment of ever being bored.
No, I don't think so.
Not one in 88 years.
Yeah, we're lucky, aren't we?
There's just always something to do.
Yep.
When we were children, we were making our own fish hooks, out of safety pins, and we wanted to have a store. We wanted to have something, so we made clay hams.
Yeah.
We went home a muddy mess.
That's so funny.
My mother never said anything. She just said, I think you probably need to wash up.
So I know you just had a birthday, right? So happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I love seeing your posts, and and that's the thing. You gotta follow Patricia on Instagram. You do a great job, and it's just fun to see what you're up to. And so what's next for Patricia, and what are some of the takeaways and life lessons you can share with our listeners?
Well, I'm thinking about doing those 2 books.
Yep.
And actually, Schiffer knows about the Hill Country book, but I haven't told him about your book yet.
Okay, good.
They'll be surprised. And that I'm thinking about probably getting my own house in order. Right now, I think it's the shoemaker's daughter because
I know that feeling.
That's sort of the last. Since I've come here, I'm surprised at the number of houses that I've worked on as a decorator, but only because somebody asked me to.
Yeah.
It's not something that I really pursue because I'm sort of more interested, I think. Actually, I'm working also to advise somebody on their book. Someone just sent me some material, and I promised to read it this week.
Good.
And get back to them.
Good. Well, you definitely keep busy. So where do we find you? How's a good way to reach out to Patricia McMillan? How do we find you?
Oh, I have a website for our San Antonio book because we're selling it locally, mostly to benefit organizations.
Okay.
And that's Coffee Table Books and More.
Okay.
.com.
Perfect. And then I know we can find you on Instagram. We'll put your handle there and Facebook.
Oh, I have an Instagram account, but I think I've never put anything on it because I'm very, very busy, and I get all wrapped up in social media. Facebook is just about all I can handle.
Yeah, okay, that's where I find you is Facebook. I can't remember if it's Facebook or Instagram. I'm kind of flipping back between the two.
But I am developing that. I'm doing a page called Christmas She Wrote.
That'll be good.
And I will talk about all my Christmas books and the things that can be learned from them because there's so much in there in every one of them.
Yeah. Well, you're a wonderful lady. I'm so happy that you came into my life. And it's one of those things that I wish I had more time to spend with all the fabulous people that I crossed during my career. But you're definitely at the top of the list of just amazing, inspiring ladies. I just find you absolutely fascinating. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And someday, Mark, here's my big thing. I want to hear you sing the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, well, that could happen. You might have to come to a Cubs-Giants game, but that's been known to happen sometimes. So I will make sure that happens. But next time I'm booked, I will make sure I get you a front row seat. How's that?
Excellent.
Well, Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays. Thank you for doing this over the phone and on my crazy little pods thing with the static and everything. But I think we heard you pretty good, and your message came through loud and clear. So thank you so much,
Okay.
Patricia. You're wonderful. All right. Merry Christmas.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Patricia. Again, happy birthday and happy holidays to you. I look forward to more of our collaborations in the future. We have some great podcasts coming to you over the holidays, too. So later this week, we have Realtor Extraordinaire Sandra Wilkin. We have a fun check-in podcast with my wonderful friend in Umbria, Italy, Elizabeth Woolley. And we will see how things are going over there in Italy and how they are celebrating the holidays in the midst of this ongoing pandemic. And then right after the holidays, we have a podcast coming with former CBS 5 News anchor Catherine Anaya. So some good podcasts in the works here. Okay, I want to give a big thank you to all of you who have been listening to our podcast as our listeners keep growing nicely. Thank you also for the ratings and reviews. Remember, the first review we get dated December 20th or later will receive a free Candelaria Collection pasta maker. So give us some love on those ratings and reviews, and make sure you direct message or email me that you posted the review so we can get you your pasta maker. We do our best to inspire living in everything we do, from our podcast to our cooking classes to our tours, and of course, with our Candelaria Design homes. Okay, have a great week, everyone. Happy holidays to you all, and let's all live our lives with love, compassion, grace, and positivity. See you next week. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I want to thank the Stockett team along with so many others who contributed to the success of our fabulous demonstration kitchen in our new Candelaria Design office expansion. You will have to check out our online video cooking classes, and our kitchen is amazing. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on many spectacular projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times, both personally and professionally, with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next tile and stone project, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is a part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.